Yeah, going back to clinic, the client that I had that I said before, Karen, I don't, I'm trying to pronounce her last name,
It doesn't.
Ronald.
It does. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But
She's one of your no, because she's one of your
oh, she's a student of mine.
yes, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to. You only know them about us by last name, so I'm trying to pronounce her last name.
Well,
It start with an R. I don't know.
okay.
But anyway, she was telling me about what we finna learn today. I was like, she's like, have you guys learned it? I was like, no. So I was looking at her like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? So I was like, no, we have not.
So today's the day.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Um, yeah. I'm laughing because I used to. Those of you who've met Miss Waite, which not all of you have, she's a substitute here. But Miss Waite used to help me demonstrate the reflexology, and people are very creeped out by feet. And I would always lean over and like rub my feet across her, my finger across her foot, and put it in my mouth. And they'd be like, oh, and I'm like, feet are one of the cleanest places in your body, because feet, by the way, usually people wash them and stick them inside a shoe. And yes, they might be sweaty, but they're much cleaner than your hands. Much, much, much cleaner than your hands. And so I would do that. And there was even one day where people were like, that's disgusting. I leaned over and bit her foot. That's a Miss Wade story that she always tells. It was on the heel. Kind of feels good. The heel's kind of tough. Anyway, that's what you're going to learn today. Not the biting part. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah? No? Maybe? Mr. McClure.
So my hands start to really hurt when I'm giving that. My camera's messing up, but my hands start to really hurt when I'm giving that. How do you get stronger hands?
Do massage.
Okay.
But I also have, by the way, I really meant that, but I also have another trick for you. So, let me grab the skeleton so I can show you. Okay, so there we go. So this doesn't have to be exact, but this is the bottom of skeleton's foot here, right? And normally we're at the head of a table working at like at the foot of a table working it like this, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do that, but then I'll take my chair and I'll wheel around, and I've got my client, my client's head is facing my back, and I do this. And that alone allows, so I can go back and forth from thumbs and knuckles to 8 fingers. This is actually stronger. I do most of my work this way. And I'm sitting on the table sometimes, or I'm sitting on my chair on this side going, and then I'll wheel back around and go to here. Does that make sense? The reason I'm saying does that make sense is Miss Cuppage, you look like it doesn't make sense.
They're supine, right?
They're supine on their spine, yes. Yeah, I don't.
Sometimes I have a tendency in a 2-hour to do some when they're prone and some when they're supine.
Sure, and that's okay. It's 100% okay. But if I'm going to do a half hour of reflexology or something, or footwork, I would have them supine. Most people, not everybody, there's always an exception. Jeez, I can't get this thing down. Oh, I've broken the skeleton. Anyway, most people don't like being in the face cradle longer than they have to be. They love having their back done. They love all the stuff you do when their face is in the face cradle, but they don't like having their face in the face cradle longer than they have to have it in there. And so the stuff that I can do with them face up, I do with them face up. So I tend to do feet and arms and hands with them in the face up position, supine on their spine. But Ms. Cuppage, I don't think it's inappropriate what you were talking about at all. Yeah. And I could see, by the way, some stuff that you could do with them prone, if their foot was laying flat, that you could probably put a fist in there and some things like that that I couldn't do with them, face up. So, and I love the idea of double dipping. I think clients actually enjoy it when you hit an area and then you come back to it again. They're like, oh, double scoop of ice cream kind of thing. So, but yes, I am talking about supine on the spine. So yeah, I hope that helps, Mr. McClure. That's what I do. And I'm a big believer in massage. I switch all the time because I do get tired. So I'll use something and I'll switch my technique and then just come back to something else just to let my hands rest. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do you ever use your forearm or your elbow?
On a foot?
Yeah.
It's rare. I have done it before because, but I wouldn't say I do it in my regular massage. I have a hard time getting the detail I need. But you could do it to get down, I'll show you a slide here in a second, to get down in some of the arch support muscles as they tie into the heel. But for me, I start to, I don't know, it just doesn't work very well for me. Yeah. But it could be done. Yeah, it could be done.
Didn't mean to cough for everybody here. Sorry.
Sorry, you didn't cough in our face, really. You know what I mean? Like it's good. It's good. Miss Stewart.
Would it be weird to like have like a tie stick or like gua sha tool or like any other like handheld tools for that? Like
Not at all.
whip it out.
Not at all. You whip that stick out. It would not be weird. It's not be weird at all. I've had people do it to me before. If you do whip out your tie stick, by the way, she's just talking about literally it's a stick used in Thai massage, and it's a fat pencil. It's a fat pencil. Yeah. Yeah. It's made out of wood, and you can use it to poke around things like that. The reason, by the way, we don't have you guys use them right now is because I feel like, if you don't know what you're feeling with your hands, you're not going to know what you're feeling through a stick. So we want you to first get the hand part. This is why we don't teach hot stone and things like that. But anyway, yeah, I think it's completely fine, and I would sell it. I would sell it. Like, you're not whipping out a tool to help you out. It's like, I'm upgrading your reflexology to a Thai blended reflexology at no extra charge. You know? Anyway, yeah, it's very effective. And if you have a client that thinks you can't get in there deep enough, you get that Thai stick out and wow. I've had people take me off the table with it. Yeah. Great question. Anything else? Yeah, Miss Dowler. Yes, ma'am.
What if somebody like asks you to expand on your selling point? What do you tell them is like the main benefit and function of reflexology?
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is such a good question. I was going to get into my presentation, but Miss Dowler, you're very insightful. So you have to be a little bit careful with reflexology, because there are people that absolutely love it and believe in it, and there are also people who think it's black magic. You know what I mean? And so you really need to kind of know your audience, so to speak. And so I will get you more specific questions in a second, Ms. Dowler, but the less specific question is, if somebody's like, I like having my feet rubbed, but that reflexology stuff, okay, well then it's a really good foot rub, and I don't mention reflexology at all. Right? If it's somebody who's like, oh my gosh, my friend told me reflexology, kind of had some magical experiences with it, then that's where we go. But what I tell people is that I tell them the truth, by the way. I say there's lots of people that believe reflexology is a way to affect other areas of your body through reflex points on your feet. That's the idea. The idea of reflexology, by the way, for everybody here right now, is that your feet are a hologram of your body. It's the belief that your feet are a copy of your body. We don't think your body looks like your feet, but we think there's a corresponding place. When I show you pictures too, this will make perfect sense. That your feet are a hologram of your body, and by pushing the areas of your foot that represent other areas of your body, you can actually affect them through energetic channels. Now, you can argue that, but there's definitely lots of stuff in Eastern medicine to support that kind of concept of channels of energy running through your body. That's reflexology. And I tell them, and then I always make a little joke at the end. I'm like, and if that doesn't work, it's a damn good foot rub. And that's wonderful too. because it is. It's a very thorough way to rub a foot, right? You're going over every little last detail. But that's what I tell them. Did that help, Miss Dowler? Okay, cool. Yeah. And by the way, if they're like, oh yeah, I totally believe that reflexology stuff, that's about all I talk about. They're like, oh, that sounds kind of hokey, but I love having my feet rubbed. Then I kind of stick to the foot rub side. Yeah. You know, who else? Anybody else? Okay. No? Good. Okay. So I hope you're as excited as I am. I want to give you guys a preview before I'm going to start the slideshow in 1 second. But I do want to give you a heads up that when you go into lab today, all you'll be doing today is rubbing feet. All right? And there is a reason for this. Yep. I'm glad some of you are excited, and others of you are like, I hate you. For one thing, honestly, you can't get better at massage if you don't do massage. And this is a highly, highly, highly requested thing. Not just reflexology, footwork is a highly, 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 highly requested thing. And to not be able to work effectively on the foundation of the entire human body is insanity. If you told me you were a great home builder, but you're just not good at foundations, I would never, ever purchase a home from you. Ever. Can you imagine somebody telling you that? Oh, I built great skyscrapers. The foundation, I'm not very good at. I don't really like messing with those. But skyscraper's great. I mean, at least for a day or two. Oh my God. So this is really, really important. And the way you get good at massage, in general, there is one other way, but in general, the way to get really good at massage is to work on a single body part for a ridiculous amount of time. Because you run out of stuff to do, and then hopefully you find stuff to do. If I make you work, actually it's the way my teacher made me do it. I got really good at hand work because my teacher, we'd come in there and he'd go, today we're working on hands. It's a 4-hour class. 2 hours of hand work on my partner, and then 2 hours of hand work on me. And we didn't just do that once, we do it multiple times. Here for the air. Please, come on in. Don't worry about me.
Like a change?
Yeah, they're here to look at the air. So anyway, that's why we want you to go into lab today. 1 hour is nothing. That's roughly what you're going to do. Is work on each other for an hour on your feet. I advise you guys do this multiple times. I know I've said it before, but everybody should be able to do, by the time they graduate, an hour of back work, right, with varied things. I don't just mean rubbing the back, for an hour. But I meant like an hour of back work, an hour of footwork, an hour of head and neck for sure, an hour of arms and hands. Should be able to put together like a 4-hour massage. And you want to be able to do that, by the way. Your clients that come to you will want you to kind of keep the massage the same, but they'll want to see new stuff too. And there will be days they'll be like, oh, just do my upper body or just do my lower body. And you just still want to be able to fill an hour or 2 hours. So anyway, that's what we're doing today. Let's just give you a heads up. Any major concerns? We're okay? Yeah? It's good times? We love it. Yes, Ms. Ramirez, please talk to me.
Can I do it over the sheet?
Well, I would really, really prefer you do it directly to the person. I prefer you don't. Now, but let me just say this, Ms. Ramirez. I admit that there are times we get clients that come in and you're like, there is a reason that I want to do this through the sheet. The client's feet seem funky or something. But I promise you that your lab partner today will have clean feet. And honestly, your lab partner's hands are 30 times dirtier than their feet. Even if they've washed them, the minute they touch a doorknob, it's all over. Their feet are probably the cleanest part of their body. And the problem is, if you work people's feet through the sheet who don't need it, they tend to think there's something wrong with their feet. Does that make sense? It's a very honest question, and I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate you being brave enough to ask something like that. And it's a reasonable phobia to have. But it's really helpful. People pick up our signals that we send them when we touch their body. And you don't want them to walk out with a foot complex. Yes, ma'am? You say something.
I don't like my feet touched.
You don't like your feet touched?
So,
So how are we? But will you touch your lab partner's feet? That part I need you to do. I have an easier time telling you guys not to get a massage than not to give a massage. Like, you kind of have to give a massage in massage school.
Yes.
So
Is it clean? Yes.
yes, they'll be clean. So you can could probably talk your lab instructor today into not having your feet touched, and they'll put them with somebody else. But I need you to rub somebody's feet. Yeah. By the way, that's true in general for all of you guys. Like when you're having a bad day, like it's really easy for me to be like, okay, you don't have to get a massage today. It's really hard for me to say you don't have to massage today, because if I ever have to report to the board about what we're doing in class, I have to be able to be like, hey, we're doing massage, and you turn down a massage, okay, like that's fine, but not doing one is harder. Yeah, I realize everybody has a day, a rough day, but Miss Sawick, like where's this going?
Are you our lab teacher today at Australia?
No, Mr. Ibarra's here today.
Okay. I don't want my feet touched either.
That's fine, but you have to do the foot rub. Yes?
With gloves? Sure.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I guess if you really want to wear gloves, you could. There you go, Miss Ramirez.
It's
Good.
so gross. It's so gross.
Really?
Peter, I'm definitely taking gloves.
Okay. We've got gloves here. Yeah. Miss Smith.
I do not mean to be rude
No, talk away.
or mean in any way. I just want the people who have issues with feet to really take a moment and understand the career that you're getting yourself into, and that full body massage, which 99% of your clients are going to want, doesn't mean no feet. Feet are a huge
Feet over the sheet, though, they're fine with.
Okay, I just want everybody to think about that's a huge aspect of massage.
It
Huge,
is.
huge,
I would
huge.
agree.
So if that is something that is gonna make or break you giving a massage, just consider that. Just keep it in mind. Just keep it that.
Miss Stewart, what would you like to add?
I was gonna also add, as a WMA and seeing and meeting a bunch of clients, one of the biggest complaints was that their feet didn't get worked at all, or they didn't spend enough time on their feet. So I was just gonna say, and that I know is one of my favorite parts of the massage. So it's just that it is super, super important to at least dedicate 5 to 10 minutes of
I
the
would agree.
massage to the feet.
But luckily, nobody is saying they're not going to work on feet. They're just saying they're going to adapt. But yeah, wear gloves. Work on them. I, by the way, agree with all these comments. But wear gloves. Don't work through the sheet, because I want you to fill them today. Can we do gloves? Yeah? Cool. All right. We'll do that. And yeah, it's highly requested. So, highly requested. All right. By the way, I appreciate everybody's honesty. For and against. I mean that. We need to have difficult discussions in this class. It's not always easy. And we don't always agree. Mr. Kachekian. Yes, sir.
And when you were saying about the trigger points in the feet, don't a lot of those trigger points in the feet affect the rest of the body going up?
That's the idea. That's the idea behind reflexology, yeah.
Like through the legs and the back, and maybe up to even the neck or head or something.
Oh yeah. The idea is it affects your whole body, and reflexology is that idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bigelow.
I just wanted to add, I really liked what Miss Smith said about that. Yeah, you might, if you have problems with certain body types, you might be in the wrong profession. But also, think about this. If you don't like touching people's feet or whatever other part of the body, you're just limiting yourself. And if people are going to want that done, they're going to look for other therapists then.
I hear that, but I do want to also, by the way, we all have issues in this class, right? All of us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not, by the way, coming back to counter exactly what you're saying, but I'm just saying, I fully am into meeting people halfway to work through issues. Like, I honestly think you work on feet with gloves on, you might be like, oh, not so bad, and one day you take the gloves off, or whatever, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. So yeah, because I think we do have, like, phobias about the human body in general, our own and others and stuff. So this is a great place to start to work through that. Miss Sawick, yes, ma'am.
Just kind of in reply to Mr. Bigelow, I'm okay if people don't like my massages. They're free to go find somebody else that can
That's
do
true.
the massage that they like.
That's true.
Because it's like pressure. I can't do super, super, super deep pressure. And if somebody wants that, they're going to go find somebody else.
That's true.
If they want feet, they can go find somebody else.
That's true.
That's not what I want to focus on.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do clinical, like, more, like, back. Because I have back problems, so I want to go towards, like, working in physical therapy, that kind of thing. Or, like, a chiropractor. So it's just not what I want to do.
Yeah, that's legitimate. Although, I really want to support what you want to do, Miss Wick, but one of the first things I think about when somebody has back problems is feet. Because if their feet
I
aren't
think
solid...
about their hips and back.
Yes, I got you.
I've never had foot problems. I had back problems.
You've never had foot symptoms, you've had back symptoms. Yeah.
What?
Well, what I mean by that is people can have back problems that stem from their feet, but their feet don't hurt, their back hurts. But the foot is the problem. Does that make sense?
Yes, but that's not what I'm saying. I want to focus on.
No,
I
you're
wanna
saying you don't want to focus on
kind
that.
of back problems that I have. Like,
Yeah.
And those aren't caused by feet.
Yeah, you want to focus on people with herniated discs and degenerative type problems in the back and such.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good discussion. I really mean that. Good discussion. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 9:14 and we'll actually talk about reflexology. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. 9:14. Okay, everybody. Yay. It's wide open, you said.
I'll show you on the second. This is awesome. And I'm gonna zoom it.
Awesome. Miss Stewart. Miss Cafiso. You there? I see you, Miss Stewart. Thank you. Miss Cafiso. All right, cool. All right, everybody. Okay, we've talked enough. Let's look at reflexology. Cool. By the way, I am taping this too for those of you that care. Want to see it again? Let's see. Yes, Miss Cuppage, please.
And we get those by just, like, if we wanted to go back, how do we get on that part?
So
Lecture?
it takes about an hour for him to upload, just so you know. So, like, I don't know why you would, but like if you tried to get on right after this, you wouldn't. But if you go in your assignments, each daily lecture is listed. It'll say, like, today might be 51, I think. And it says lecture 51, reflexology. You never click on that assignment because it's not an assignment. It's a placeholder. But if you click on those lectures, there is usually, not in all of them, but almost all of them, there are videos of my past lectures on that subject. Sometimes there are multiple videos. Like today I will be putting this video up in addition, but I bet you last year's is there and possibly even the years before.
So is it labeled reflexology or is it just labeled lecture number?
Yeah, sometimes it's labeled reflexology. There's only anything under there will be like something I did.
Okay.
And sometimes, like if I've already got one labeled reflexology lecture and I did it again, it'll just say lecture 8.31.22, which is today's date.
Okay.
But here's the cool part about it. All your guys' lectures basically are being done by Ms. Bauer and Mr. Ibarra. None of the copied lectures are from them. All of the copied lectures are from me. That doesn't make them better, but it makes them different. So if you want a different take on any of the lectures you've gotten that day, if you go into that day's lecture, there's probably a video of me doing it at least once, if not twice before. Does that make sense? So you could be like, okay, you know, Mr. Amar, that was pretty interesting, but I'm a little bit confused. I wonder what Tapscott says about that. Boom. Or, okay, Ms. Bauer said blah, blah, blah. I wonder, like, or you just were like, I want to review because I'm really interested in this thing. I want to hear a different teacher talk about it. You can click on it. It will take you to a YouTube channel, and you can watch, you know, you can fast forward. You can do whatever you want, but it'll be there. But in this case, Ms. Guppich, I'll be uploading this too, but I suspect there's already one in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So anytime it says, like, 51 lecture, click on those. Sometimes, by the way, not on a lot of them, but some of them have like also like supplemental charts I've thrown in there, things that might be of interest to you. You know?
And there's more than one choice, basically, of those, or just the latest one supersede the last one?
No, thank you. They're all in there.
Okay.
So, now, sometimes I don't save every last lecture, but my point is, it's not uncommon to find 2 or 3 lectures in there. You can click on any or all of them, and they're all done by me. I'm the only one who tapes.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it'll always be that way, but right now it is, which is really helpful. So you could get two different teachers' take on everything right now. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay. Let's talk about reflexology, everybody. We touched on some of this stuff already because we've had a very complete and robust conversation about reflexology and why it should be of value to you and all that kind of stuff. So, sorry, by the way, the reason it says gratitude here is because this is also a standalone course that I teach as continuing ed. So it's one of the most requested continuing ed courses there is reflexology. So in continuing ed, I have them do gratitude too. Complete strangers come in and look at me funny and then they love it. Okay. Before we talk about reflexology, let's talk about the muscles of the feet. And yes, you guys are going to have a section coming up. In fact, you are heading your way down the leg. Sorry, you're heading your way down the thigh, towards the leg, towards the feet, at which time you will talk about foot muscles. Okay? I don't want you to memorize these. Don't worry, there's not a test on these right now. But I want you to start to realize a lot of the stuff that you can figure out already because of stuff that you should know about feet and about hands and about anatomy. So, when you curl your toes under, normal curling your toes under, does anybody know what that action is called?
Plantar flexion.
Well, that's plantar flexion, thank you, Ms. Guppich, is when you push your foot down and your heel flexes.
Inversion?
What happened? Inversion is when your feet point inward a little bit. You're walking on the outside of your soles. Eversion is when they point out. But what do you call it when you curl your toes down? When I tell you, you're going to be like, this is ridiculous.
Retraction.
Wait, what'd you say, Mr. Kachekian?
Retraction.
Nope, not retraction, sorry. I thought I heard
Flexion.
Flexion. You are flexing your toes. Right now I'm flexing my fingers. What do we call it when our toes stick out?
Point.
Extension.
I
Extension.
just like in dance. I always called them like flexing and pointing your toes. So
I know.
that's why I
I'm
say
sorry
that.
for laughing. But I was just flexion and point. No, flexion extension. Flexion extension. So, if when my toes pull under, that's a flexion. Where would the muscles have to live? On which side of my foot would the muscles have to live to pull my toes under in a flexion? Yes.
On the bottom.
And what do we call the bottom of the foot, Ms. Cuppage? What area of the body is that called? It's a region.
Dorsal.
That's the top of the foot.
Plantar.
Yes. And thank you, Ms. Zwick. I saw you mouth it too. Plantar. No, it's good. I want you to mouth it. I want participation, Ms. Zwick. That's wonderful. It's plantar. So it's plantar. This is the plantar region. You plant it on the ground. So all muscles that flex the toes are going to live in the plantar region, right? So that doesn't mean there aren't other muscles down there. I'm not suggesting that. But you can get a pretty good idea of what's going on down there. So this picture we're looking at right now is of the bottom of a foot, which is the plantar region of a foot. So if you were looking at this, it's because somebody's standing on your face, right? This is the bottom of their foot, okay? And we have a muscle that goes to the digits. It goes to 4 of your toes, right? It goes to the digits. And because it's on the bottom, it pulls them and flexes them. And it's a short muscle because most muscles that live in your hands and feet are short. The longer muscles live up your legs and your forearms. So when we have a muscle that attaches to your digits and is on the bottom of your foot and therefore it flexes them, they call it flexor digitorum brevis. This is a very handy way to think about foot muscles and later hand muscles because they're all very similar, by the way. I don't memorize all my foot and hand muscles. I know certain things. I know anything going to my fingers and toes, 3 or 4 of them at once, is called digit or digitorum. And I know that stuff on the bottom of my foot tends to flex it, so this is flexor digitorum brevis. Just the short muscle that goes to the digits and flexes them. Does that make sense? Okay. Any muscle, any muscle, any muscle, any muscle, any muscle going to the big toe has what word in it? Yes, that's right, Miss Smith. And I think Miss Swick, I think she mouthed it too. Anybody want to say it out loud? Just for the fun of it? Mr. Bigelow?
Hallicus or something?
Holosis.
Holosis?
Yep. And I remember it by halitosis, which is bad breath. Toe breath. Holosis. Halitosis. I just think it's a good way to remember it. Anyway, holosis. And I hope you can see it on the slide here. We have a muscle on the outside of the foot, by the way, wrapping to the outside and hooking to the big toe. Do you see this muscle on the outside of the foot going to the outside of the big toe? If something's on the outside of my hand, what's it gonna, and it's hooked to my thumb, where's it gonna pull? If something's on the outside of my foot and it pulls, what kind of action is it gonna create? It's on the outside. Abduction. It pulls to the outside. And this muscle is literally called the abductor hallucis. By the way, there's a muscle on the other side of the foot, on the outside of it, on the bottom still, but it's on the outside of it, going to the outside of your pinky toe. You guys see the name of it there? Abductor digiti minimi. I cannot make this stuff up. It sounds like a joke. It's the smallest digit, digiti minimi, for $1 million. It's on the outside of the foot. Muscles can only do one thing, pull. It pulls the little toe out, and it's called abductor digiti minimi. Now you know the muscles when you're going down the bottom of somebody's foot, but kind of on the outside, you pinch along it sometimes. You're touching the abductor digiti minimi and the abductor hallucis. Mr. McClure, yes, sir. You're muted, sir. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't want to confuse things. Never mind.
Okay. What, sir?
I don't want to.
No,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
wondering why, if it's the big toe is on the inside of the body, the medial side, and you're pulling the toe away towards the midline of the body. Why is it?
Mr. McClure, you are not confusing things. You are doing what a junior in massage school should be doing, which is thinking. And not just memorizing, and not just nodding every time I say something. Mr. McClure's question, just to be very clear to you, if you guys look down at your own feet, your big toe is between your legs. And if you abduct it, you actually pull it towards the midline. So why isn't that called adducting? It's a
Because
really...
you have to think of a midline going down your foot.
Yes.
Or down your leg.
Yeah, well, down your foot. Just your foot and hands. Because when they talk about feet and hands, they talk about it as though the midline is in the feet and the hands. And so the pinky toe and big toe, or the pinky finger and thumb, are moving away from the midline of the hand, not the midline of the body. And that's why. That's why.
Okay.
It's just a convenient way to talk about it. But so your question's dead on. I mean, it's a great question. But anyway, so it is still pulling it away from the foot, but you're right, not the body. They do that for a very specific reason, by the way, because the foot might not be by the midline of your body. You might have your legs crossed. You might, all sorts of weird stuff. So they talk about it in relationship to the foot as though it's its own body. Cool. So again, I'm not asking you to memorize these things, but I am asking you to memorize that anytime you see holocyst, you know it goes to the big toe, right? If it's on the side of the foot, it's probably going to abduct the holocyst. That'd be abductor holocyst. If it's dead accurate on the bottom of the foot, it's probably going to be flexor holocyst. If it's on the top of the foot, it's going to be extensor holocyst. If it's on the middle of the foot going to the big toe, it's going to be adductor holocyst. And all those muscles exist. And you can just look at them and see. You can't see them in this picture yet, but I'm just kind of pointing that out to you. There's another really big point I want to make here that has nothing to do with naming muscles. Look at where this tendon attaches to the heel. This is very important. Most people massage feet by going up over the heel. And yes, you should. There are times you should go over the heel. That's wonderful. But most muscles attach to the inside of the heel. And you actually want to run into the heel. And what I mean by that is this. Can you guys see this heel here? Yeah. There are muscles that attach, and they don't go over the heel, they actually attach back in here. So when I rub it, I try to rub into this heel right here. This is where they insert. This is where your powerful arch support. Then I go up over it. But if you're just rubbing up over it, you're kind of missing those insertions every time. And right here, there's massive muscle insertions. You should be trying to get into the heel. And I'll show you a real foot here in a second. We'll slide. It will help. It's all about detail when it comes to feet, hands, and face, by the way. Feet, hands, and face, all about detail. Okay. I'm not worried about this. This is for quizzing you guys. We're not going to do that right now. All right. So, we're still looking at the bottom of the foot. What they've done is they've ripped off the top muscles. They've ripped off the top muscles. And hey, I've got a muscle on the bottom of the foot going to the big toe. What's it called? Yeah, flexor hallucis brevis. I don't even care if you get the brevis part right. By the way, there's a flexor hallucis longus. Anytime you see a brevis, there's a longus, but the longus lives up the leg and attaches to the big toe. So the
Could you remind me what brevis means?
Short.
Short.
Brief. Please be brief. Please be brevis. And there's a longus. It's just like anytime there's a Tapscott Junior, there's a Tapscott Senior. So if they put brevis in there, there's a longus. And in this case, there's a flexor hallucis longus that lives up your leg. Because just like your hands, most of the power for your feet comes up your legs. These are smaller muscles meant to help assist. Now we've also got a muscle on the bottom of your foot that goes to your small little toe. What do we call that? Flexor digiti minimi brevis. Yeah. By the way, that is one exception. There may not be a longus. It's a long story, but it still lives on the bottom of the foot, so it'd be a legitimate guess. And you'll notice what else is on the bottom of the foot, by the way, is a boatload of fascia. A boatload of fascia. Ever heard of plantar fasciitis? Yes, good. Itis, anytime you hear itis, teacheritis, you're irritated with your teacher, right? Cuppage-itis, irritated with Miss Cuppage. Plantar fasciitis is inflammation of the plantar fascia, and it usually happens from an overuse of the feet, because the plantar fascia is meant to give spring to the foot, and if they're used too much or they're put under too much stress for too long, that stuff gets inflamed, and it causes all sorts of problems. And massage is actually very effective for plantar fasciitis. So you will get clients that come to you with plantar fasciitis. And you will get Miss Cuppage apparently coming to you with plantar fasciitis. And they love having their feet rubbed. It's very, very relieving. And remember, fascia is very avascular. It doesn't get a lot of blood. So rubbing it helps to increase the blood flow. And it helps heal it quicker. And then Miss Cuppage is happy. Okay, so that was just kind of a way to think about foot muscles without actually having to memorize them at this point. Yeah? Yeah. So, reflexology. Is it fact, fiction, science, or religion? Please, somebody tell me.
Yes.
Science.
Okay, I definitely heard science from Miss. So was that Mr. Bigelow who said yes?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on your all of the above answer, I'm assuming, is what you were saying, sir? Or are you just being convenient?
It's probably yes to all of them. There's probably a little bit of everything mixed in, right?
So it's a fact. Fiction is kind of like a lie. So it's a fact, it's a lie, it's science, and it's religion.
Never mind.
Oh, okay.
I think you're right, because some people may think it's fact, some people may think it's fiction. Just like some people think religion is facts and some people think religion is fiction. But I definitely think it is a science, and there has been research and study on it, and I think there are people who believe in it in a very spiritual light. That's just my take.
Yeah, I guess it's those things to everybody. I mean, some people, like she just said, that's a good point.
Yeah, thank you both. That's exactly what I was looking for. It really depends on who you ask, and nobody is 100% sure. And look at what a robust debate we got into over feet, just over feet. Be careful you don't get into this robust debate over reflexology with somebody. I have had very religious clients that felt that it was kind of black magic-y, and like they didn't want to have any part of it. I've had clients that were very scientific who thought, nope, there's loads of scientific fact behind it, I 100% believe it, you're an idiot for not believing it. I've had people be like, it's a myth. I've had people be like, it changed my life. It's a fact. I mean, it's all over the place. Miss Smith, please.
Just kind of on the religious aspect of it,
Yeah.
and if like Ratana or Tisket or Gentleman want to chime in and kind of give us some insight. I know in Thailand, like feet are kind of sacred.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, but I am a little curious as to like why and how they handle that with their massages.
Yeah.
But
now reflexology is not from Thailand, but yes, feet are
right. But I guess
sick.
I mean more like feet, yeah. Than reflexology.
Well, that's sacred.
We kind of go hand in hand, right? Yeah. Like foot massage is reflexology.
I mean, that's the way I look at it. Yeah. Anybody want to chime in?
If not, that's okay.
So, the whole point is, thank you, by the way. The whole point is know your client, right? So, and be able to appreciate where they're at, right? We're not there to judge. We're there to make people happy. And you can do either a reflexology or a foot rub on anybody, basically. Ms. Cuppage, yes, ma'am.
I thought it was interesting yesterday. I was reading the book, and it was like talking about all the zones and all of the reflex points. And then at the end, it's like, you can encourage your clients to do this on their own, and you can just use a tennis ball or a racquetball. It was kind of like all this technicality of these regions and zones and landmarks, and it's like, but you can just use a tennis ball too. Yeah. I was like, wait, what?
Well, it's funny. I know exactly the part you're talking about in the book. And I was actually talking with Miss Bauer about this yesterday because we're both on the same page in this. Massage is kind of like that, where we teach you all this technical stuff, and you need to know it, and it really helps make you a better massage therapist, and it helps you problem solve. But then we're also like, oh yeah, make sure you rub the crap out of that. Like, right? It's got these two different levels. We're like, oh yeah, you need to know about all this stuff, but we're like, make sure you rub the whole thing too. So yeah, it's kind of got a duality there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people would rather have somebody else do it for them.
Thank God. Yeah,
One,
I've
one of
tried.
the things that you can't, it's kind of like you can't tickle yourself, right?
Right.
Because you don't get with the parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
So your touch is not the same as somebody else's touch.
And it shouldn't be that way. I've tried. I can rub my own hand. I can reach just as well as somebody else can,
Yeah.
right? I can rub
Yeah.
my own hand. I can basically rub my own foot, maybe my thigh. There's some stuff. But anyway, the point is, these are areas I can reach as well as somebody else. I know exactly the level of pressure I want. I know exactly where it hurts. I know exactly how I like it done, and it's still not as good as somebody else who knows what they're doing.
Right.
And I love that, and I find that very, I don't know exactly what that says, but it's,
Crazy, yeah.
but you're right. That's why, I mean, it's why we all have jobs. but it is fascinating to me. You're absolutely right. I should be amazing at rubbing myself, and it's still better when somebody else does it, as long as they're decent at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Mr. Kachekian.
For people that feel like it's kind of some kind of sorcery or whatever you're thinking, could it be that they have like a confirmation bias against that in that way? Like, oh, if he's doing something to my foot and is messing with my other parts of my body, then he's got to know some kind of sorcery or whatever. It's not like necessarily that they're not believing in it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's true. Now, I don't know what their motives are, but you make a very deep philosophical point, which is some people are against stuff because they don't believe in it. Some people are against stuff because they very much do believe in it, and it scares them.
That's what I mean.
And it scares them. Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, my point is just to be sensitive to the different types of philosophical beliefs you have on your table. But yes, you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
Mr. McClure.
Just to what Abby said, or I'm sorry, Miss Smith said.
Should be Abby to you.
The feet, the heart, and the top of the head are really important in the work that I do because it's understood that those are huge areas where energy is flowing into and out of the body.
If you are an energy worker of any kind, yeah, this stuff is extremely important.
It's where the energy field around the person connects to the base of the person. So plantar fasciitis would be an indicator of like you need to get grounded, and feet pain is like get your feet on the earth and get back to grounding. So
yeah. Thank you. Mr. Bigelow.
Mr. Tapscott, what is your personal beliefs or feelings about reflexology?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Mr. Bigelow. I'll talk about that right now. Let's just talk. By the way, I'm going to answer that question flat out in just a second. But let me talk about reflexology first. So reflexology is the idea that there are reflex points that are connected to other places in your body via energy channels. And I have a couple things to say about this. One thing I want to say is reflexology, this word and this concept of a foot massage working this way is a fairly new invention. It was only designed about less than 200 years ago by somebody. People say reflexology goes back to the time of Egyptians because they have hieroglyphics of Egyptians rubbing each other's feet. All that means is foot massage goes back to the time of Egyptians. I'm not saying it's not reflexology. I'm just saying that's a real stretch on things. And somebody's trying to be like, it's 5,000 years old. No, rubbing feet is 5,000 years old. I'll give you that. But it doesn't really. So I'm not against it. I love reflexology. But sometimes people build stuff up more. They'll also point to Chinese medicine and such. Chinese medicine does believe that there are rivers of energy going through your body. Totally. Very similar to reflexology, but they don't agree they're the same points as reflexology, and again, they're kind of trying to piggyback on somebody else's stuff. So, but the philosophies are very similar there. Very, very similar. This concept that there's unseen forces inside you that connect your whole body together and going to have a lot to do with your health. So that's reflexology. I think the easiest way to think about reflexology is that the feet are a hologram of your body, and working on the places on your feet that correspond to your body helps affect those places on your body. And I'll show you a picture of that in a second, too, to help with that, too. Western reflexology, this concept of actual reflexology, was really designed by a nurse in like the 1940s. And she modeled it off zone therapy. And if you remember in your book from zone therapy, it was like, I've got zones in my body, and a lot of therapists work this way too, and there's actually a lot of reasons this might work, even if you don't believe in the energetic side of it. That there's a zone all the way down this side of my body, and if I have a problem anywhere here, I should work all the way down to the outside of the foot. If I've got a problem in the midline, I should work all the way down the midline to the inside of the foot. I mean, even from a structural point of view, that makes sense. It's not a crazy idea. But I just want to point out that reflexology is a fairly new invention in that sense, where somebody came along and said, no, this is how it is, and they mapped out the entire feet. Now, maybe they did it correctly, and maybe it does tie into some of the same stuff that we see in Eastern medicine and such, but it's a fairly new invention in that sense. Here's zone therapy, where you see the feet matching up to the body, just like a building would match up to. Yeah, Miss Stewart, please.
So I actually have a book on reflexology that I got from Savers.
Yeah. Good place.
So, hold on, let me turn this effect off. Mountains. Okay, so this this is just in the very back when it starts to expand on reflexology further, but this is color coordinated with the chakras.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
each of the chakras obviously rule a certain part of your body. So I thought it was interesting that it kind of looks into that, and it says the colors right
Very
here in your foot, and the chakras that it associates with, as well as the body parts that those chakras
Well, and it should kind of line up like the chakras, because they just line up the body that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen it color coded like that, but I like it.
I know, it was
I've never put it together. That's what they were doing.
Color therapy, and I was looking into it, could you this is treating with color and reflexology, so that's so interesting to me. Do you use colors, or do you just use the chakras?
I don't use colors, but I have a feeling you're going to.
Yeah, I'm gonna use crystals, so
Good.
I was thinking about using colors with them.
Yeah, and sound. Don't forget sound.
Oh yeah, tuning forks. I'm about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kachekian, yes, sir.
I don't know if this is unrelated, but when you were showing the pictures of the different areas of the foot or different areas of the body, I was thinking of what's it called? Needles.
Oh, acupuncture.
Acupuncture. Is that have anything to do with it, or is that not real?
I mean,
not
at the
related?
risk of oversimplifying, I would say they're very similar concepts. Yeah, I would.
Okay.
In fact, that's what I'm going to talk about right now. So, reflexology and Eastern medicine stuff that practices meridians, which are rivers of energy that run through your body. They don't agree on the same spots, but they do agree on this concept, that there are rivers of energy that flow through your body, and when they become blocked is when you have problems. Now, some people find that a very hard concept to stomach, and by the way, it could be a hard concept to stomach because it could maybe not exist at all. I'm okay if you want to feel that way. I don't have proof you're right or wrong. But I do want to point out, to keep us open-minded, that many of us believe in things we can't see, right? And I don't just mean outside of ourselves. Many of you believe in a God we can't see, but also many of you believe in a soul that somehow basically resides inside me and has an eternal thing. And you would say it's the more important thing, right? We also believe in something we can't see that has a tremendous effect on our body, which is emotions, which is energy too. And so I love this concept that when blockages occur, it's not that there's something wrong or broken. It's that when energy is not allowed to flow, there's a problem. And so acupuncture and reflexology and shiatsu and tui na and Thai massage that works on sen points, along sen lines, all of these things are meant to release blockages of energy so it can flow. If you think about it, even when you've had like emotional problems, sometimes half the problem is the emotions aren't flowing. Right? It's not just the feelings we're having, it's they can't flow freely and completely to then be resolved. They're dammed up, and it causes all sorts of problems. So this is not a crazy idea. And it does show a big philosophical difference between the East and the West. Essentially, in Eastern medicine, they say there is a spiritual or internal problem, an energetic problem, that is being reflected physically. That your body is built about this energetic temple, and your body is a physical reflection of what's going on inside it energetically. In the West, we tend to think, at least in our medicine, we tend to think, oh, you're having a purely physical problem, and when that's fixed, you'll feel better emotionally, and you'll feel better inside. And so they're very different philosophies. Very different philosophies. And you can see that in a lot of our stuff. So there is no Eastern reflexology, but there is a belief that foot massage is very powerful in these, definitely used in medicine, and they definitely believe you are hitting pressure points that affect every other areas of the body. They just don't agree they're the same pressure points that are in reflexology. This is a slide of meridians. There will be a test on this on all these points here in about 10 minutes, so make sure you memorize this. No, just showing you that. I wonder sometimes, this is starting to get to your answer, Mr. Bigelow, but it's not the entire answer yet. I also wonder if there's some of course I have to tie fascia in, right? I've got to take the whole thing and say, forget about these, forget about the West, let's talk about fascia. I love this person to the right here who looks like a big saran wrap person, because that's kind of like your fascia body. Inside and out, by the way, not just on the outside. And all that fascia ties down into your feet. And your feet have, your fascia, by the way, all your fascia has proprioceptors. Proprioceptors are internal receptors in your body that tell you where you are in time and space. They're the reason that I can close my eyes right now and know what I'm doing. Now, we take this for granted. I know I've done this before, basically. We take this for granted, but the fact that I know my hands are here, we think is so obvious, but why do I know my hands are here? And you go, well, you told them to be here, but where is here? How do I know I'm doing these things? And it's because my fascia is telling me. My fascia has proprioceptors in it that literally say, oh, he's stretching right here so far to a certain point at a certain speed, and it allows me to see my body with my eyes shut. Your proprioceptors are the reason you believe you are alive right now. I'm pretty sure you're alive right now too. But your proprioceptors are the reason that you are having the experience you're having right now, not the cognitive one, but the feeling of being in your body. And some of the most important proprioceptors are in the fascia of your feet. Because those proprioceptors send signals back to your head about how your feet are sitting on the ground. And if they're not, if they're lying to your brain because they've been messed up a little bit, not lying. If they're not doing their job as well as they could, these proprioceptors, they're sending inaccurate fascial reports to your brain, and you are trying to adjust up here for it. Now, you've got inner ears to make sure you stay roughly balanced so you don't fall over, but it does make you possibly tweak your feet weird, and your body will compensate for that, because I can do weird things with my legs, and my inner ear will keep me standing up, but my body has to compensate for that because my feet think they need to torque and do weird little things because the proprioceptors in that fascia aren't quite doing their job. And this is where PNF stretching comes from, right? We reset proprioceptors. What's one of the best ways to reset proprioceptors is to rub them. It's very weird, but rubbing the proprioceptors in your fascia tends to help reset them because they kind of go, oh, and they get a new stable point. It's very, very, very effective. Now, I am not for a second suggesting this is why reflexology works, but it could be. I don't mean that as a leading thing, like it could be, and I'm sure it is. I have no idea, to be very honest with you. Mr. Bigelow, I don't know. I have clients that I've had miraculous things happen on the table where they're like, oh my gosh, what's that spot? And I'm like, oh, that spot is your pituitary gland. They're like, oh my gosh, I just had, cancer in the pituitary gland and whatever. Like these things that match up incredibly well. I've also had people who are like, doesn't seem to be any connection whatsoever. I don't know. But I have had also miraculous things happen with people's problems with their feet up by working on their feet. And I do really believe you are resetting their proprioceptors in their foot by rubbing them. So it really could be working for multiple reasons. It really, really could be working for multiple reasons. There's also one, and I'm not ignoring you, Ms. Dowler, just 1 second. There's also something else we all need to consider. And this is true about massage in general. It's true about life in general. Reflexology can 100% work, and we could be wrong on all these reasons as to why it works. There are lots of miraculous things that happen in life that we're like, oh, they work for such and such a reason, and we find out a generation later or 100 years later that those things really did work, but we were completely wrong about the mechanisms of why they worked. But those are a lot of good reasons for reflexology to work. Ms. Dowler?
I have a question about if there's like a more specific term for this like resetting process.
Such a good question. I wish I knew an answer to that. I suspect there is, but I don't know what it is.
I think maybe it could be explained like, the treatment EMDR.
Oh yeah, I like that. But I feel like that's more a cognitive reset, right?
But if you just take the DR, which is like desensitization reprocessing, could that describe it?
Sure. I mean, from a physical point of view, yes. And actually, there is a term. I like your term better, by the way. There is a term. This is neuromuscular facilitation.
Okay.
I mean, that's the term. But your term actually describes more what I'm talking about. Not from a mental point of view, but you are resetting the sensitivity level, right? Yes. You are actually trying to get it to reset the sensitivity level by disrupting it enough that it has to reset completely. Yeah. Exactly. You're shaking it out, so to speak, right? Yeah. I love that. I think you just invented something. We'll come back to this later. These are fascial lines. This is just a quick point about fascia, because we've talked about fascia. This little muscle up here that is hooked on to the anterior iliac crest is called your tensor fascia lata. It actually meets with your gluteus maximus, and they both feed down into your IT band, your iliotibial band. Your iliotibial band is one single piece of fascia turns into your tibialis anterior, crosses over your leg, and goes underneath your foot. It actually attaches underneath your foot at the exact same location as your fibularis longus or your peroneus longus. They're the same thing, and it connects back up here. And this is just one fascial line that goes down and connects underneath your foot. If this thing is messed up underneath your foot, it can cause a lot of problems on the signals it sends back up this line. So it's just an example of a fascial connection. I'm not trying to make the argument only for fascia, by the way. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how structural things can be very important, how they tie down to your foot. So, can't we all just get along? Does it have to be fascia? Does it have to be magic? Does it have to be pure science? If it's really, really good fiction, does that work too? Probably. Before I answer that question about can't we all just get along, this is a picture of the holographic image superimposed on your feet. This picture right here is the picture I keep in my mind when I'm doing reflexology. I don't keep the complicated charts in my mind. And I'll explain why in a second. But this picture tells you that the big toe corresponds to the what? Your head. And let me be more precise than that. It tells you that the left big toe corresponds to the left side of your head. The right big toe corresponds to the right side of your head. Going down the center of the feet corresponds not just to the organs, but to your spine. The outsides by the little toes correspond to your shoulders and arms. It really is putting 2 feet up. This picture is really, really helpful. This is so helpful. You're going to find out it's even more helpful in a second. But anyway, can't we all just get along? Yes, we can, because whatever you choose to call it, it spells money. And I know we're a loving class, and I know we're going to cure the world, but we also want to go on vacations and buy nice things after we've saved the world. And you deserve both. I want you to save the world, and I want you to have your dream treehouse or yacht or whatever it is that you're into. And reflexology or really good foot rubs spells extra money for you. Really does. Allows you to give longer massages. It's easy to do. It makes for happy clients. Yeah. Plus, any of your clients wear these? Hopefully, many of your clients wear these, and these shoes have a red bottom on them. Anybody familiar with those? Because a lot of my clients wore those with a red bottom. And for those of you that don't know, it's not. I'm not saying that because the red bottom makes them look cool. Those shoes cost over $1,000 a pop. $1,000, and some of my clients had 250 of those shoes. $250,000 worth of high heels. How much massage do you think they can afford? And by the way, do they need massage? Let's look at what happens to the leg when you put the foot up like this. And by the way, don't stop wearing high heels. Just don't wear them all the time. That is important. Don't wear them all the time because your calves will shorten. And it's a problem. But feel free to wear them. This is not a treatise against high heels. This is why they make your feet hurt, though. When the foot comes down like that, you lose the arch entirely. You lose the arch entirely, and the tibia goes directly through the talus, directly through the metatarsals, directly into the tarsals, directly into the ground with no spring left. So instead of kind of walking along through life and going scrunch, 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 you go bam, 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 bam. And then you have to take off your $1,000 shoes and come to Tapscott and get a $100 massage. So, and this is a lot of your clients. Yeah, just to let you know. Better yet, by the way, there's another problem that happens in massage for those of you, if you work out of your house or go to people's houses. People with full-time jobs, which will be many of your clients, really only want massage from like 7 till 10 o'clock at night because they have jobs. They can't come during the day, right? Because they have to go to a job. My clients that wore these oftentimes didn't have a job. And they could get a massage at 12 and 1 and 2 and 3. So that my whole job and my whole life wasn't focused around the 3 hours at night that I could make money. I now had a full day. You want people with flexible schedules too. Okay, so why might reflexology work? Reflexology might work because your ankle and your foot contain 34 joints. 34 joints. We only think of like the toes as each a joint, but your big toe is 3 joints right there. Oh, sorry, I lied. 2 joints right there. All your other little toes are 3 joints each. Then there's joints between the toes and the metatarsals. There's joints between the metatarsals and the tarsals. There's joints between the tarsals and the tarsals. There's joints between the tarsals and the talus. There's joints between the talus and the calcaneus. There's joints between the talus and the tibia and the fibula. What happens if one of those joints is hurting? Just one. Would that make you walk funny? Would that possibly affect your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back, your neck? Absolutely. So, You have extensive nerve distribution at the bottom of your feet. That's kind of what I was talking about. You have proprioceptors down there that send signals to your brain and tell you how you are standing. And they do get set improperly. Just like the other nerves in your body get set improperly when you sit over at a desk all day long and you don't quite straighten back up all the way. Part of that's shortening of fascia, but part of that's because the nerves just aren't used to standing up straight again. So you get to kind of reset that. What about lymph? Do you guys remember the cardiovascular system? Have you done the lymphatic system yet? Okay. The lymphatic system, if you remember, is the bulk garbage trash collector for your body. And what happens is 10% of all the blood you pump out today does not come back to your heart via your veins. You would blow up and pop like a balloon. And you probably wouldn't make it 3 days without your lymphatic system working. I mean, I'm serious. If it shuts down altogether, it's over. That sucker picks up 10% of your blood every day, filters it out through much larger vessels called lymphatic vessels in a low-pressure system. This is important. It's an extremely low-pressure system that has one-way valves that you slowly get stuff up there that finally goes through all these filters and finally dumps back into the heart, all cleaned up, all nice and shiny and ready to help you out. It's great. It's a great system. But it's a low-pressure system. It doesn't have a lot of suction. So where does all the lymph pool? In your feet. Thank you. Gravity makes it pool in your feet. If you've got a lot of junk in your feet, they may not feel really well. What moves lymph along? Massage. I already said this, but your foot position sends postural information to your central nervous system. That's what CNS stands for. If your postural information is off, that's it. Your posture's off. Period. That's just the way it works. Those of you that wear glasses and need them to drive, if you drive without your glasses on, the information you're getting to your eyes and your brain is not very accurate and your driving tends to suffer. The same thing is true with postural information. It could work because meridians. There could be meridians of energy running through your body. It's not a crazy thing. Those of you that think Mr. McClure's massage is so magical, he is doing something non-physical. Something's happening. You can't deny the reality of that. Could work because of zone therapy. Could work because of fascia. It could work because the feet are the foundation of the entire body. It'd be the first place I'd look if I knew nothing about you and there was a problem. Why would I start? If I'm not going to start in the feet, I might as well start on your earlobe. I mean, I'm just guessing, right? I don't care what the problem is. Mr. McClure, yes, sir.
It's a fun test to, if you find tension in a point in the foot, say the lung point, because it's really easy to identify that. It's on the pad.
Yeah.
It's pretty big if you look on page 245. So you find tension there that kind of feel like a BB or a marble or liquid or whatever it is. Also go up and palpate 2 inches or 2 fingers length underneath the coracoid process is the action point for the lung meridian. You might also find
Tension there.
Yeah.
Do your own experiment. That, by the way, really good advice because we're in a field where you really do have to do some of your own experimentation. Yeah. Last but not least, and this is my answer, Mr. Bigelow. I think I agree with everything that I just listed. Everything. I know that's convenient, but I really do think I agree with all these reasons why it might work. I think I believe in all that stuff up there. At least to some pretty large extent. But it feels good. And I feel like when I say that, when I say, oh, massage feels good, that people think that somehow that's a placebo effect. But feeling good to me isn't a placebo effect. It is a medicine. It is the thing. And don't we do stuff because we want to feel better or we want to feel good? I look forward to a day when people recognize that's medicine. That they recognize that their attitudes actually affect their health. And so I, again, think I've healed many clients. I mean, they healed themselves, but I've helped heal many clients by just making them feel better. And then what happened? The miracle of their body kicked in. Because most of our problems are because we are blocking energy. Whether it's meridian or not, we're blocking something that naturally works already. You know? So, all those things could be why reflexology works. And definitely one of those lines up with each of your clients, at least to the bare minimum. You can talk to about it. So don't worry, not ready to rub yet. You can't rub. I mean, you can rub your own feet right now. This is because this is part of a continuing ed course. This is just another way to look at reflexology. They're doing the same thing. They're just kind of showing you how this maps over to the body. But it's the same as the holographic image I just showed you. Same concept. Same concept. This is a standard reflexology chart. Now, I don't actually sit there and memorize these because I instead focus on the holographic image, and I want to make one more point why I don't focus on these, why I think that holographic image is so helpful. Those of you that are into reflexology, correct me if I'm wrong, how many of you have, by the way, have found fairly different reflexology charts? Now, by the way, they always agree that the toes are the head. I don't mean that they're upside down. But when it gets to exactly where the lungs exist and where they still are in the right area, they're in the chest area, but they get very nitpicky about where exactly the liver is or the gallbladder or whatever. And again, they line up, but like a lot of them have the colon much lower than this picture. Some of them have a lot lower than this picture down the heel. It depends on how they map that to a foot. And I'm telling you this for a couple of reasons. One is, that's why I don't think you should 100% rely on the chart. You should 100% rely on the regions. Like you should know you are in the lung region, the heart region, the spine region. Yes, those all are accurate. But if you're getting nitpicky down to a half a centimeter on the foot, there's a lot of charts that will disagree with you by at least a centimeter. At least. The other reason I say this too is you'll have clients sometimes be like, no, it's up another quarter of an inch there. I know, I've been reading my chart. Well, you've been reading a chart. There's not a single universal chart that everybody agrees on. So again, they all agree that it's a holographic image and it roughly matches the body. I'm just saying, don't get caught up in some argument about something being off a half an inch. If you're in the rough lung area and they seem to be having a problem with their lungs, that's a matchup there. Mr. Bigelow.
This is kind of a weird question, but if you were doing reflexology and you massaged counterclockwise on the intestine zone of the foot, would that cause constipation?
I don't know. I think you should try it on your lab partner today and ask them later. Ask them if you can first.
I'll try it on this week.
No. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I've never tried that. I don't think I've ever tried that. You should try it. I mean, with somebody's permission, try it. Or maybe try the opposite. Go clockwise.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do. Like when we rub somebody's abdomen, we tend to go clockwise to move stuff along.
Right. So
right.
I was just curious if doing the reflexology counterclockwise would cause problems with constipation.
Yeah. But I think it might be a nicer thing to try doing it clockwise and see if they tell you I feel more regular.
Right. I was just wondering. My point too is there? You think there's a right and a wrong way to rub somebody's feet in relation to that?
I don't know. I think if you believe in it, you better rub it in the clockwise manner. Yeah. And I think, by the way, there's no harm in sticking to that. Right? It doesn't make your foot massage worse or whatever. And most people do, the reason I really think is most people do reflexology don't go and follow the thing around there. They kind of thumb walk the whole foot and just try to cover the whole thing really carefully. That's actually one of the neat things about reflexology is even if you don't have a chart, you're just trying to cover the whole darn foot, like every last little bit of it, which is possibly the other reason it works so well is it's a really thorough foot rub. Anyway, test it out, sir, with a willing participant. Let me know. Or have somebody try it on you. Have them go clockwise, and if you poop yourself, let us know. I'll pay for the cleaning because it'll be worth it. I'll bring it up like every week when I see you, but I'll still.
I'll wear a diaper today in lab.
Thank you. Miss Cuppage, yes, ma'am.
Okay, one's a question and one is a comment.
Please.
I like to rub feet, honestly, because I like my feet being rubbed.
Sure.
And I find that instead of like just looking at the feet, you just kind of close your eyes and just feel where there's those points that you can like, your arch might be tight, but if you're like looking at every single thing, you kind of miss the bigger picture, I feel like.
Yes.
And it's just like, maybe put yourself in another place. Like I'm not rubbing someone's foot, I'm rubbing someone's hand, and I'm okay with hands. For those of you who don't like to rub feet.
Yeah.
Because it's very similar.
Yeah, it is.
Feet and hands are very, very similar.
They are. I will, by the way, when I went to school, they used to blindfold us. So I don't mean every lesson, but they would blindfold us. They did on several occasions. And you don't need your eyes at all to do massage. At all. And I would 100% agree with you. For feet and hands, close your eyes. If you don't know what you're holding on to, we've got bigger problems. It's not a draping issue. You're not worried about exposing them. The reason I keep my eyes open during a massage is to make sure the sheet's not shifting. I'm not really ever looking. I guess I'm looking for open wounds. Like I don't want to, but I'm not really looking during a massage. There's not much to see. I'm usually watching my client's eyebrows during a massage and seeing if all of a sudden they rise up really quick, because then I'm like, oh, I went too deep again, which I tend to do. That's what I'm watching for. I'm watching them out of the corner of my eye, try not to be creep, and watch them and just see if their facial expressions change a lot, because it tells me that maybe I kind of got carried away somewhere. But I agree with you. Try your foot massage. Really good advice, by the way. Thank you. But also just from a real mechanical view of doing it well. Yeah, close your eyes and just go to town. And by the way, every little millimeter counts. And you can sit there and go, move a little millimeter, move a little millimeter. Thumb gets there, take your little fingers. I mean, you can just, you can spend forever on them. And they're really fascinating. There's stuff in there. There's like different fascia and crunchies and scrunchies and soft and hard and
And the lines, you can feel the lines of the tendons.
You can feel the lines of the tendons. Yes.
You can just really feel all that stuff.
And that too is really good advice. Basically what you were just hinting at. There's nothing better than just finding a muscle, find where it starts, and really rub where it starts, and then trace all the way up it really slowly and find where it ends and really rub where it ends. If that could be that could be your entire massage education right there. Find where muscles start, rub the crap out of where they start, which some people call attachments or insertions. Rub the muscle all the way up to where it ends. Rub the crap out of where it ends, which is the origin or the other attachment. Boom. You'll be the greatest massage therapist in the world. That's it. You're graduated.
And
That's it. We're done.
My other question is, and then we're done. My question is, like I've seen on this chart, as well as the basic chart that was in the book, there was like the landmarks, and then you've got like some dotted lines that are like, I don't know, I don't understand those.
I think they're dotted lines for regions. Let me go back here.
It says it's on this one.
It's on this one?
Yeah, it's up by the toes and the.
You mean the waistline here?
Do you see? No, it's like a dotted line.
A dotted line?
Does anybody else see it?
Are you making stuff up?
It's right underneath the toe.
These are just lines that are pointing to stuff. I don't know what you mean.
I think her triple hydration's kicking in.
That's what I was thinking.
I think.
Was it on the?
You're seeing a different reality.
Is it on the other slide too? Like.
Yeah, that one. That one. See the dotted line? See that dotted lines, people.
That's true. This dotted line is probably for the. Is it for the heart?
Is it ish?
Shoulder. It demarks the region.
Yeah, but what region is it marking?
The
Is it
chest.
marking the heart or is it marking the chest region? That doesn't make sense because the chest region would be all the way over here too. I wonder if it's marking the heart. Because a lot of people believe your heart really is more the left side of your body, but it has one of your compartments of your heart is bigger, so it kind of sticks out left more. That's I don't know what that's there for. I have no idea.
Well, and on the in the MT book, it had like your lower abdomen area, and then it had another line that was on the.
Well, now this, by the way, this line in the middle here, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but this line in the middle is supposed to be showing your waistline.
Right, but it was a vertical line. I drew the picture, so it's like it was a tendon upper ab area, and then it was a lower ab area, and then there was a vertical line between the diaphragm line and the waist and the pelvic line. I was just like, it just kind of was like, but it didn't like say anything about it. So
I will look at that.
See this.
That's in the book, right?
Yeah.
I will look that up and get back to you with a real answer.
Okay. It just is like those just seem kind of vaguish areas, and there was like an extra line but no explanation. So
that's what I want to say too, and I don't know, but I'll find out because I'm curious now. Okay. You've now gotten inside my head. And I'm not trying to blow you off. I just don't know, and I'll figure it out.
You can say I don't know.
Yeah.
You can have one I don't know. I'll take
I think I've had 2 today already.
Ooh, I don't know.
Let's talk about the structural support of the feet here too, because you guys will be rubbing them today. And the feet actually have a really interesting arch. Some people say they have 3 arches. They have an arch that goes down the inside here, and an arch that goes down the outside here, and a folded over arch in the middle. So your foot is actually supposed to look like this image down here. It should look not just like my hand here, but also cupped inside too. Because all that stuff smushes out when you step down. You have to think, I love what Miss Smith's doing, thank you so much. No, this is what I want you guys doing. I want to see people like poking their nose when I'm talking about parts of their body and squishing stuff and pulling it. This is exactly what I want you doing. Thank you. If you think about what your feet have to go through, okay, I don't care if you're the tiniest person in class, let's say you weigh 100 pounds sopping wet, you have little chicken bones in your feet, and you go jump on them, and you run on them, and you hop off stuff, and you stumble around, and whatever, and they should break all the time, but these arch support systems squish out not just this way, but also out to the sides every time you step to help absorb that stuff through your fascia. It's a miracle. It's an architectural miracle. So be thinking about that. So when I rub a foot, I tend to think a lot about this triangulation underneath it. I tend to think about working stuff into the heel and working up these outer sides especially, but also up the middle too. But I tend to think about this triangulation spot underneath. Not that you shouldn't be working the top of the feet. You should. By the way, whatever you do to the bottom of the feet, the top of the feet can take 10%. If you can do 100 pounds of pressure on the bottom of the feet, the top of the feet can take about 10 pounds of pressure. If you're like, oh no, Tapscott, you're wrong, I can do much more on the top of the feet, guess what I'll say? You're not doing enough on the bottom of the feet then. Top of the feet are very sensitive. By the way, have any of you guys done a salt scrub on your feet? Scrub the top of the feet with the same vigorousness that you do the bottom of the feet. It's not pleasant. I used to work in a spa, man. We do the top of the feet like, bottom feet, like they're horses' hooves, right? Which they are. By the way, that's another thing you'll hear from clients. Oh, I've got terrible calluses. You should have calluses. You walk on your feet. They're supposed to have calluses. It's okay. Miss Magruder.
Yeah, this is just a comment for us females or males if y'all get y'all feet done. I don't know where on y'all feet, but when they nail salon text when they scrub the feet,
yeah.
I don't know what part is the most ticklish of the feet. So
which part is
that
it?
says something too. More ticklish, like
the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually my bottom of my feet.
Your bottom of your feet is more ticklish.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And by the way, I think this is 100% true, but I find that one of the best things to do for ticklishness is go deeper and go slower. Right? If somebody's ticklish, try to increase the pressure and slow down. The lighter you go, when you try to back off, it's just more tickly. That's what tickling is all about. It's like this gentle little nerve sensation. Go in deeper and go slow. Just hold them for a second, too. Okay. I love, yeah, Miss Smith, talk
get into this, but how would we approach people with flat feet differently than that have an arch?
It's a great question, but not really much differently, because even people with flat feet have an arch of some kind. And what usually happens is their muscles and fascia are compensating even more because there's not enough arch there. And so they just tend to need it even more. But I don't really change my massage much. The reason I'm rolling my eyes back in my head is because you're hurting me with this question. No, I'm thinking, and the one thing is that like the contours of their foot change a little bit, but I rub them exactly the same. It's just they don't have as much arch. But I find that they actually have similar issues. I know that structurally speaking, flat feet cause some problems. And so I find that they might want massage more, but I don't find that they have different problems. They still have problems in their arch or lack of that area. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of the arch, though, that Ms. Smith so very kindly brought up, this is what I was talking about with some of these muscles that we just learned about. We've got a muscle on the bottom, goes to the digits, flexor digitorum longus, things like this. Run into the back, the front of the heel, really. This is actually the front of the heel. All the stuff you guys feel on top of somebody's heel is just fascia and padding. So I actually try to rub down towards the heel. As you're heading towards the heel, not the toes, as you're coming from the toes towards the heel, you should be going deeper as you go here because there's more fascia to go through here. You should go lighter as you head towards the toes, deeper as you go towards the heel. You're trying to run into the back of the heel here, which is really the front of the heel. These attachments are extremely important. And this is some of the stuff that absorbs it's most of the stuff that absorbs your impact from your foot. This, I hope nobody's eating right now, is an actual foot from a dead person. And what they've done is they've peeled back just the top layer of skin to show you some of the fascia under here. And I want to show you this triangulation right here. It's going to all the toes. This is just a big rubber band webbing underneath their foot that's heading towards the heel to help them spring off each step. One of the big things that fascia does for you that's so neat, so cool, is energy conservation. So, before we had fast food and lived in one of the most food wealthiest countries in the world, you needed to conserve energy. And one of the jobs of fascia is to help spring you along. That's why it's sometimes easier to jog slow than it is to walk fast, because you're bouncing, and you're bouncing off your fascia. And fascia is meant to spring load every time you come down. That foot smushes out and pops you back up. And that's a lot of what this fascia does in the bottom of your foot. It absorbs force, but it also preserves energy and springs you back up. And all of it needs to be massaged. By the way, all this white stuff is fascia here. These are just the thicker fascial lines. But it's all fascia down here. And then underneath it's muscle that's wrapped in fascia. There's just more and more fascia. These real distinct kind of ropes underneath this stuff, those are tendons going to actual muscle. This here is plantar fascia. This is where people get plantar fasciitis. This is when you rub somebody's foot and you feel that kind of crunchy feel. You're probably running across the webbing in here of their fascia. It's going crunch, 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 crunch. And for most people, they like that. Depends how sensitive their feet are. This is also a dead foot, but it's a real foot. And I show it to you for a real reason here. Do you guys see this nice spongy stuff here? Looks kind of spongy. That's bone, right? A lot of us rub the foot like this. We rub here and we go up over this heel. And that's delightful. But the muscles are in here. So when you come down from the toes, you want to run into this part of the heel. You should be going deeper as you head towards the heel. Then come up over the heel. Otherwise, what's happening is you are rubbing the bottom of the foot and glossing over all the arch support muscles every single time. Try to get in here, in this area. Mr. McClure.
Can you give a foot massage without using your thumbs?
Yes, you can do all fingers. You can do all fingers, no problem. In fact, you should try.
Knuckles too?
Yeah. Knuckles, fingers, no thumbs. That I fully support. Anybody wants to try not to use their thumbs at all today, please. That is good advice. Yeah, and you definitely could. Yeah. Miss Cuppage. Yes, ma'am.
When you're rubbing somebody's foot, do you go back up like to the Achilles and into the calf at all? Do you consider that any part of the reflexology, or like on the front of the foot into the metatarsals and the tarsals,
Yes.
and continue that line up?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't even know what to say, but yes. Absolutely. All that is, but the Achilles back there gets, the Achilles back here is, by the way, your Achilles is your calcaneal tendon. It's where your gastrocnemius, your soleus, and your plantaris all come together into one tendon called your Achilles tendon. Your calcaneal tendon, they're the same thing. It is the strongest tendon in your body. It can withstand over 2,000 pounds of force. You could tow a truck with it. And yet, it is the most ruptured tendon in the body, which tells you how much force it's under. It, too, is highly avascular, and rubbing it's really a good idea. Rubbing around the ankles, all the detail work you can think of. And by the way, while you're rubbing the foot, think about manipulating it. Bend the ankle, roll the foot, twist the foot back and forth to get inside the nooks and crannies of the foot. Do you follow me? All that stuff. I know I tend to exaggerate, but you really could spend an hour on one foot. No problem.
Do you ever have your client just kind of like they do the work, like you're just going to slowly move, point your toe and bring your toes up and just do that, and you're going to work the area?
Sounds like a great, I have done it, not often. I do it a lot in TMJ work. We're working their jaw joint. But yes, it'd be highly effective. The only reason I don't do it more often, Ms. Cuppage, is because most clients don't want to help. They'd rather lay there and relax. But is it a brilliant idea? Is it a good idea? Could you build your entire massage around that idea? Yes, 100%. Is it something fun to play with your lab partner? Yes. Is massage meant to promote movement and therefore having them move while you massage them is highly effective? Yes.
Okay, last question. Like when you're doing circular motions or whatever around ankles, or you're doing a rotation of the foot, do you have a certain sequence or number that you do to get the most range of motion, or the most both ways? I know going clockwise and counterclockwise is good, but I don't really know how many times to do that.
So do I have a certain number or sequence?
Yeah.
No.
You were no help at all.
So I was going to add to it, but I just thought it was funny. The answer is no, though. I don't. What I tend to be thinking of is a couple things. One is I tend to think about, is the crunchy thing I'm feeling starting to go away, right? Is the tension, is the movement becoming better? That's one thing I'm thinking. And if it seems to be better, I seem to move on. And if it seems to, be taking longer, I seem to stay. With one added caveat, and this I think about even more. Is this becoming irritating to the client? Because everything feels good. I think about this a lot when I rub legs. Like when I'm rubbing somebody's inner thigh, we really need to rub inner thighs. They're super duper important, but they're super duper sensitive. And even if I'm being really nice, just flushing up your inner thigh, it gets irritating. So I rub it a couple times, I go to your outer thigh, rub it, and then I can come back to your inner thigh and rub it again. Then I go back to the top of your thigh, and then I go. And so I do the same thing with feet. Like ankles really feel good to be rubbed, but it's thin skin around there and stuff, and it can get irritating. So I do it a couple of times. If you want a number 3, I don't know. And then I think, oh, this is probably getting irritating. I go move on upstream, and I come back down and do it again. I'm really usually thinking about, is this becoming irritating, and do I need to get back to that spot again? And that's a good system with lots of stuff. When somebody's got a tight spot, work it. But, eventually it gets irritating. Go away, come back. Try to work it from a different angle. Go away, come back, that kind of stuff. I'm thinking about that the most.
All right, and one more question.
Well, you said that was the last question.
I know, but I can't within the
Okay, but that's the last question for this block of the class, right? I mean, I kind of feel like you used up your 2 months.
Okay, so since our lymphatic system is draining into our feet, and we're trying to flush that out, so as we're working the feet, do we want to flush it to the popliteal area, because that's a big lymphatic area? I mean,
I love that
is that where you want to go? Is up there every so often and get it moving?
Sure. I love that idea. I don't normally do that, but I actually think it'd be a really good idea. But let me say, remember when you do lymphatic massage,
It's very light.
yeah, one other important thing too. Because of the one-way valves,
Mm.
you work distally while rubbing proximally. Let me show you what that means.
Yeah.
So, let me turn this off for a second. This is important for all of you. By the way, this is lymphatic massage. You could take a 2-year course in Australia on just lymphatic massage. Easily. It's very, very detailed. But this is the entire concept in a nutshell. This will not make you the lymphatic expert, but the entire concept in a nutshell. One-way valves, I'll give you a couple different examples, but I think this one's the easiest one to understand. Let's suppose I've got people standing on a ladder, right? I've got 4 people standing on a ladder. I'm on a ladder. There's a guy above me on a ladder. His feet are up here, above me, right? He's not standing on me, but he's above me. And above him is another guy on the ladder, and above him is another guy on the ladder, right? Okay. And this ladder is a human leg, in our analogy here.
Okay.
If you try to start rubbing me up the ladder, I'm going to run into the feet of this guy. And now you got to push both of us up the ladder, and that's really hard to do. And that's how one-way valves work. So what the easiest thing to do is get the top guy of the ladder to move up. Then go to the guy below him, get him to move up to the next rung, then get the guy below him to move up the next rung, and that's what we mean about you are pushing proximally. You are pushing them up the ladder, but I'm actually working down the ladder. Then I go back to the top. So I would actually rub the top of the thigh up into your pelvis, go down your thigh a little bit, rub that up into your thigh, go down to your knee, rub that up to your thigh, go down to your leg, rub that up to your knee, go down to your ankle, rub that up to your leg. And repeat.
Okay.
And that's because there are one-way sections in there. It's like a straw with all these one-way valves. You've actually got to lift the top part of the straw up, then move the next part up, next part up, next part up, next part up, next part up. And that is me rubbing proximally while moving distally. And that's what I mean. I'm rubbing towards the body while moving away from the body.
Okay.
And that's the whole concept of lymphatic massage.
So do you want to do that when we're talking about reflexology and getting the lymphatics out of the feet?
You want to do that.
Too? Well,
I know it. It was kind of a snotty answer, but I meant it like in a really good way. we are now entering this realm where you guys are starting to design what you believe. So, Ms. Cuppage, do I think it would be a very effective thing to do? Yes, I would 100% think it's an effective way. It's not just I'm being like, oh yeah, you do it, you do you. No, I think you're onto something. And I think it might be a Ms. Cuppage thing. And some other people might copy it, and some other people might be like, no, I like to spend more time working on, because you're going to lose time from the feet by doing that, right?
right.
So we're now starting to make choices about what are things, if you believe in lymphatic drainage, yes, you're going to start putting that into your massage.
Okay.
Now, I believe in lymphatic drainage, by the way. I just meant we are now in this really tricky part of the class where everything you do takes from something else.
Right.
Do I think you're making a very good choice? Yes. And that, I can't even explain it better. I don't even mean but I'm making a better one. Don't feel that way at all. I actually think what you might be doing might even be better. But it's your thing now, and you need to experiment with it. That's the best answer I can give.
I started thinking about this comparison yesterday.
Okay.
And that how we massage is kind of like comedians. And that we all do it a different way. Comedians, there's a lot of different people that are really funny.
Yes.
But they're not trying to copy somebody else. They're trying to be their own comedian. Trying to be their own person. And I feel like that kind of is what we're doing in massage.
Yes.
And I started getting really kind of overwhelmed because I start watching videos and every single one is different. And then I'm trying to combine all this stuff and it's confuses me instead of I gotta find my own way.
You do.
I gotta find my own path and find my own thing that I'm gonna be the best at.
But you do that, by the way, by copying other people and then seeing what sticks and what feels right for you. Don't get me wrong. It's really handy, it's really handy to get exposed to a whole bunch of different stuff and be like, this is what I want to focus on because I still only have an hour like everybody else.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, what you're saying is brilliant. I'm just I've got this other stuff I want to do too. You know what I mean? Yes, you're absolutely right. And I will say this with one caveat though. You would also like to be as use user-friendly to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So if you can make your therapy also feel good, it puts you in kind of a sweet spot where you're getting a lot of work done, but people also really like the way the work feels when you're getting it done, so you have a bigger client base. Whereas if you are, I've met massage therapists. I used to know this lady, this is like 40 years ago. I don't know why I remember her so well, but I thought she was absolutely horrible. Horrible. Just horrible in so many different ways. But she's like, I've got 10 clients that just love me and they come every week, and she did. She didn't, that's all she wanted. And she somehow found 10 people that liked what she did, and that's what she did. So I don't mean you should be horrible because of that reason. What I meant was, I think it's better if you can find thousands of clients that love what you do. You have a little easier time making a living. But you're right. It's about trying to please the public in general, but also having a specialty you really believe in and you really think is therapeutic and working. Yeah, and it is overwhelming. Yeah. So last thing to, sorry, Mr. Kachekian, please talk to me.
So I wasn't sure if this is on point or not, but when you were talking about moving lymph out of the leg, when you're doing the top part and then going down to the lower parts,
yeah.
Do you ever go like, does it kind of circulate in there as well, or does it actually kind of move it out of the leg region into the other areas?
If you are going up to those other areas, it moves it out the leg region all the way up, yeah. You're eventually getting it back up to the heart, if that's where you're heading it towards.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, lymph is a little bit tricky in that it can move laterally because there's not just one way back up to your heart, but it's all heading back to your heart. It's all heading back to your heart. Ms. Cuppage, by the way, with one thing to add, though, really fast, please do the lymph thing, but don't do it today. Because I want to focus on feet today. Otherwise, it's too easy for people to be like, I'm moving lymph. That's why I'm working on the head and neck. Yeah. But yes, I love your idea. Absolutely love it. So last stuff, these are massage tips, which most of you probably already know already, but I give them out when we do this in continued ed. LSD. LSD is not just something from the 60s that I've read about. That's all I know about it. But it stands for long, slow, deep. And fascia requires, like when you guys stretch, you don't bounce down, touch your toes, and walk out and go, I just stretched my hamstrings. No. You go long, slow, and deep to move fascia, to stretch it out. So this is the nice thing, by the way. In some ways, you can be very lazy with your foot rub if you're pushing in there. Get into the foot and slowly, slowly creep along. You might not do a client like this, like what you're going to do today, because they want a little bit more movement, but it's very effective. You want to tell somebody on foot massage too. Do long, slow, and deep, and their feet will feel amazing tomorrow, and then they're going to love you for it. Try to use fingers instead of thumbs. We already talked about this as much as possible. Fall off the bone and dive in. You're going to hear me say this for the rest of the course, but I always say to miss the bone, you find the bone. And why do I want to be that close to a bone? Why do I want to find the bone in the first place? Because muscles attach to bones, and the attachments are the most important part. Anybody can rub the belly of a muscle. Finding the attachments is 100% important. It makes you a really good massage therapist. This is not just my idea. I've walked into places. And this lady used to have all these clients. She goes, you know what the secret is? She's like, you focus on the attachments. That was her whole life philosophy. I already knew that secret, but she was right. So bones, muscles attached to bones. So what you do is you find a bone and you slide off it. And the minute you slide off it, you dive in, you squeeze, you push, you press right at that moment. Like when you guys are working the sacrum down by the glutes, you find the sacrum. Don't go try to miss the sacrum. Hit the sacrum gently. Get to the edge of it, and the minute I'm about to fall off it, you plunge in. I'm trying to scrape the glutes off the sacrum. Same thing with feet. You can be on the side of feet and feel the bones there, and then when you slip off them just a little bit, all of a sudden you're in fascia and muscle. Plunge in. Fall off the bones, dive in. Scrape the fascia off the bone. Scrape the fascia off the bone. When I work on people's fingers or something, you can actually try to scrape the fascia off the bone. It's very effective and it feels good. I wouldn't use these techniques anything but hands and feet, the scraping part, but I wouldn't hands and feet. Add movement to your strokes. What I mean by that is what we've already talked about. Articulate the foot. Roll the metatarsals and the toes around. You know, Miss Cummings is going to have her client move the foot for her because she's lazy. But anyway, the rest of you, move the foot for your client. Those of you who want to give a full service thing. No, I'm kidding. But move, all that's movement. That's wonderful. Cover everything. The foot's only this big. Cover it all. Cover it all. And by the way, once you've covered it all, and you think you've run out of stuff, drop down a level and cover it again. And then once you think you've covered all that, bend the foot, cover it all again. Once you think you've covered all that again, bend the foot the other direction. Do it again. Get nitpicky. Get nitpicky. And when I say debone the foot, I'm actually picturing deboning a Thanksgiving turkey, getting all the meat off the bone. Obviously, we don't really want to do that. We don't really want to pull the meat off the bone, but that's the concept. Yeah? That's the concept. Okay. All right. So, we have... I'm happy to answer other questions, but I thought I'd release homework here too. You have 3 homework assignments. One is a little unusual. I don't mean unusual like in a bad way. It's an automated reflexology test, which means you can take it over and over again. It's meant to teach you. I actually like it. I think past students have liked it too. The other one is a more standard test of the chapter, and the final thing is on the deep 6 lateral hip rotators, which you're going to be hearing about tomorrow. The deep 6 lateral hip rotators are the kind of the rotator cuff muscles for your hips. That's how I like to think about them. And they're underneath your gluteus maximus mainly. And they're super duper important. And they're really cool. And they feel really good to have massaged. Yeah. Yeah. That's another area you can spend an hour on, hips. Yes. All right. Questions?
Seems a little excessive today.
Yeah? The homework?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Duly noted.
Duly stated.
Duly stated. Yeah. Let me look. I was trying to think if I could give you any